guys, Sean C. Phillips here, and welcome to a new DVD collection video. This time I'm going to talk about what I would consider must-see horror films. And I picked some obscure ones, I picked some well-known ones. It's basically me going through the DVDs and thinking of the ones that I would consider must-see. So if you're starting a collection, or you just want to see some different horror films, or ones that I would say, you know, if you're looking to see horror films and you want to see the ones I would say are must-see, these are the ones that I would say. And of course there are tons and tons more that I didn't talk about. But this one, I just went through and saw the ones that stood out to me, that I really remembered really liking, and I would say you guys should check out. Now the first one is Stephen King's Pet Sematary, the first one. The second one was okay. Eddie Furlong was cool. I like it. It's not a must-see. The first one was, though. And I don't know if this is out on Blu-ray yet or not, but it's basically this family moves into this new house, and it's right on this major expressway. Not really a major expressway, but trucks come flying on. It's like a two-lane road, but it's mainly trucks going across this road, doing deliveries and stuff. A weird reference is if you watch the show American Pickers, it looks like a lot of the roads that they drive on, those two-lane, in-the-country roads. And basically the little kid, Gabe, gets hit by a car and killed. And the next-door neighbor, played by Ed Gwynne from, the Munsters, the classic TV show Munsters, which they're remaking now, is in this show, in the film. And he tells him about this thing about if you bury somebody in the Indian burial ground behind the house, behind the pet cemetery, because there's a pet cemetery behind the house, behind that, up a cliff, down all this stuff, is the Indian burial ground. Basically, though, the kid comes back to life and isn't the same. And that's basically the plot of the thing. And the whole time, too, the father's seeing images of this one person he couldn't save that's trying to warn him, and it's definitely a must-see, and one of the Stephen King films that I would say they did a really good job turning into a film. And I know they've been talking about remaking this, so I don't know. One thing you may notice is I may look sweaty. It's hot in this room. I have hot lights on. You can't run the air conditioner or anything, otherwise it will blow the sound out. So it's called sweating your arse off in here, because it's a little bit hot. I think it's like 76 or so. This light blows everything out. Another must-see one, though, is Ravenous. Now, this isn't like a full horror slasher kind of thing or anything like that, but this is one that I've always really liked. And it's stars Guy Pearce, Robert Carlyle, and David Arquette's in it for a small part, and the other, Jeffrey Jones, who's into some bad business, but he was cool in the movies that he was in. He's not really done much anymore lately, but I don't want to get into all the details, but you can figure it out. But the movie, though, is Guy Pearce, and he basically was in war. He was like a war hero. I think he was like the only guy who survived. Basically, he played dead in the pile when they were at the war and made it look like he was dead. And so that's the only way he lived through the thing. He really didn't do anything. And he ends up basically can't handle anything, so he gets stationed out in the middle of nowhere, and he ends up, Robert Carlyle's character ends up coming out, in the middle of the night, sick, falling, basically he tells this story about these cannibals that he was with that tried to eat him. They ate the whole group. That was like, if you played the game Oregon Trail, it's kind of like that, basically that, but then they ended up having to eat each other. And he ends up leading them out into Robert Carlyle's Carlyle character, leads them out into where he said everything happens. And they're trying to see if there's anyone left, because he said this story that the one girl was left. And I'm not ruining anything, because you find out that he was the main cannibal and he led them out into a trap. And I don't want to say anything more, but this is a must-see one. Now this one I've talked about a lot. But it really is, if you want to see a must-see zombie film, must-see horror film, Return of the Living Dead. And this is definitely one you should just pick up if you don't have it. Basically, though, it's about is at a medical supply warehouse, and this one guy, the new employee, is asking, what's the weirdest thing you've seen here? And he ends up taking him to the basement and showing him canisters with dead bodies in them. And they go, oh, this thing doesn't leak. And he goes, oh, no. And he hits it, the thing explodes, lets out this gas, and ends up starting all kinds of issues. It ends up bringing everything back to life in the supply warehouse, the butterflies, the split dog. Then they want to destroy the thing. They don't know what to do. They've cut it up. Nothing works. They think, oh, we'll take it to the next door. The one's friend, the boss's friend, works at the embalming, at the mortuary and can bomb the thing. And they end up doing that. The smoke goes and brings everything in the graveyard back to life, and it becomes a nightmare. Must-see zombie film. This is a must-see 80s kind of silly, futuristic kind of movie, and it's Night of the Comet. And this was, I've always loved this movie. I was so glad when it came to DVD. I wish they would have put some features on it. I know for a long time they were talking about doing a sequel to this thing, but it never ended up happening. I know Kelly Maroney, like the main blonde chick in the movie, was talking about for years about wanting to remake it into a new movie, but it never ended up happening. I don't know if it ever will. And I know she for a while wanted to buy the rights to this. I remember all kinds of stuff, but it's basically in the futuristic kind of. I don't think it was futuristic. I don't remember if it was now or when it was, but basically a comet comes, and everyone in the world basically turns into dust, and a few people end up turning into these zombies. And the main stars are these two girls that were not exposed to the meteorite because they were. The one was in a projection room. The other was in I think it was like a shed out back or something. So neither of them were affected by it. So it was them living in this world trying to survive. And there's a group of survivors that were in this underground world, like chamber thing, kind of like in Day of the Dead. And they come after trying to find survivors, but they basically, I don't want to say what they're doing, but basically they were exposed a little bit, so there's some problems. Now this one is the one movie is must see. The first one's okay. I wouldn't say like you have to see it. It's only available in this 2-pack thing, but it's Motel Hell, and I've spoken about this a lot of times, and that's absolutely, if you don't have it, order it. I think there's a 4-pack you can get of Motel Hell and Wrong Turn and something else. I don't know if it's Wrong Turn 2 or some other movie. And basically Motel Hell, though, is a farmer, Vincent, and his sister. And they run this hotel, this motel, and they're basically planting the guests in the backyard and turning them into beef jerky. And he has a successful business of Farmer Vincent's jerky. He calls them Farmer Vincent's fritters. And it's outstanding. And I've heard talk so much about there's a remake, and now I've heard the remake shot and finished, and I guess they're not doing anything with it. I really hope they don't do anything. I always thought the only person who could play Farmer Vincent, if they did a remake, and he wouldn't do it in a million years, was Clint Eastwood, and they could have Kathy Bates as the sister. But there is no way in hell they would ever do that. But it's an absolute must-see. The next one I saw again for the first time in years on TV and remembered how cool it was, especially the music. And for the late Corey Haim, it's a must-see. And it's Silver Bullet. And Corey Haim is in a wheelchair in this movie, and Gary Busey is in it. And Gary Busey, a lot of people give him a lot of crap, but he was in an action. He's very cool. And this is basically, he builds him this amazing wheelchair that's basically like a motorcycle. And he ends up seeing a wolf in the night. Then the wolf ends up hunting him. And the one guy from People Under the Stairs that I'm about to talk about was in this as well. The guy who played Daddy in People Under the Stairs. But this is a must-see for Werewolf. And amazing music in this. Now these are ones people know about, but they're not the remakes. The remakes are really not that good. The first remake was okay. The second one, which was the prequel to the first one, I really didn't like. But these two are must-see. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, the late Dennis Hopper. And I have a couple versions of this. This isn't out on Blu-ray yet, but the first version was uncut too. Like it was, so this is uncut as well. The first one, though, is about a group of people that go out and stay at their farm. They go to see a property that they own. A bunch of friends are out there. It ends up being next door to Leatherface. And everyone knows the plots to these, but they're absolutely ones you should definitely see. The second one was Dennis Hopper, character trying to find his brother from the first film. And his brother was the character who was in the wheelchair. And he ends up stumbling into this old underground kind of golf course thing. I don't know exactly what it was. It's kind of weird, like theme park underground thing. And this is the one that Bill Moseley was in. And I think he was supposed to be playing the brother to Neal. Yeah, Edwin Neal. I think he was playing his brother or something. Because I don't think it was the same character, because the other one dies. Now the next one, and this is another one I've spoken about a couple times, and this is like, if you want to see a creepy, haunted kind of film, when you really don't see anything, where it's all implied, and that's Session 9. And Brendan Sexton III, who's a great actor who just isn't doing much anymore, was in this. And David Caruso. A lot of people don't watch it because David Caruso's in it. And, you know, I haven't watched him in any of those shows he was in. I really only watched him in this, and I have no problem with him. A lot of people didn't care for him. But it's about a group of people that are basically cleaning out an old building before they can tear it down because it's filled with asbestos. And I guess they can't tear it down because otherwise it's going to contaminate everything around with this dirty building stuff. And they basically, it's in an old insane asylum, and the one guy starts to hear things, and like I said, a lot of implied stuff. It's not like, you know, jumping out at you. It's not that kind of thing, but it's absolutely a must-see. Hopefully at some point they put out a Blu-ray of this, because this DVD is in that, you know, not formatted for your screen widescreen. It's from USA. I don't know, it's not that great of a DVD. I'm sure you can get it cheap, but hopefully at some point they put out a better version of this. The next one is a seldom spoken about George Romero film, which when I talked to him at a convention, I said, this is one of my favorite ones you did, and he was like, wanted to talk about it forever, because like, I guess no one speaks about this one as much as anything else, and it's Monkey Shines. And this is about a character who becomes paralyzed and can't do anything on his own and doesn't really want to deal with a nurse or anything, so he gets this trained monkey that helps him with everything. There's a whole lot of other things along in this movie, but the trained monkey ends up becoming basically obsessed with the character and doesn't want anyone else around. And it's, I don't want to ruin anything, but this is a really cool one. The next one, for another sort of silly, cheesy B-movie horror film. Not like, you know, the typical, like, you know, this is like for a B-movie horror film, this is must-see. This is Killer Clowns from Outer Space. Another one, there was lots and lots of talk about there being a sequel to this. I remember even back in like 2000, the Chido brothers kept on talking about the sequel. I wish someone would give them money to do the sequel to this. This is the kind of movie, too, that you could shoot this for so cheap, I think, nowadays, you know, with just, you know, HD cameras, just do it. I wish someone would just give money. It's basically, though, this tent that's like a tent that's grasslands in out in the woods, and it ends up being killer clowns, and that are basically turning everyone in the town into cotton candy. And the cool old guy in the beginning was the guy who was in the Ghoulies 2, which is a great character actor, and he's like, "It's a magic moon." That guy. If you saw Ghoulies 2, that scene was, in my opinion, one of the most inspiring scenes, when he's sitting there talking about the magic moon. Now the next one, this one I don't remember all the plot, but I know that The Ring mildly copied some of this, with the scene with the well. When they were digging out the well at the end of The Ring, there's a scene just like that in this, this is a 70s film, and it's the Changeling. And like I said, I cannot remember what happened in this. I know it is so creepy. I wish I could remember the full plot to this, though, but I remember absolutely loving it. The next one, I have to show the first one, too. And I would say that these are must-see for anthology horror films. Creepshow, which is, you know, a Stephen King, George Romero both worked on this together. Stephen King wrote the screenplay for it. And it's, I think, 3 or 4 tales. My favorite one of this in the whole movie, there's 2 that I love. The crate, which was this crate they dig out, and this weird monster thing in the crate. And the other one was Leslie Nielsen's story, when he plays it totally straight, real, you know, not over the top for him or anything, real scary kind of character that's, you know, putting Ted Danson in the sand and basically going to kill him. It's really cool. And the sequel, I like the sequel. They made a 3rd one, which was really bad. The 3rd one, though, really what the 3rd one of these reminded me of was basically like an episode of Goosebumps. Basically reminded me of Goosebumps gone all R-rated. But part 2 was very cool. The one that always stood out in this was the bunch of these kids that were going swimming out in a lake, and there was this sludge stuff, and it ends up going through this. They're on this plank out in the water, and the sludge basically melts them into nothing. That was the one that always stood out. And the next one is another Stephen King film, which have always liked, and a lot of people are creeped out by this, and the first half is good, the second half wasn't that great, but it's still worth checking out, and because it's just so cool, and you know, Tim Curry did so well in this, and it's about these kids that, like, all these kids are getting terrorized by this clown, and a group of these kids try to fight this clown in the movie, and then it cuts to years later with them having all kinds of problems in their life, and the one kid that was so cool that killed himself was Jonathan Brandis from Ladybugs was in this. Every time I see him, I feel sad that happened, because he was so good. And, you know, there's a lot of people that passed away in this. John Ritter's in this. And this actually has, the DVD has this, I'm pretty sure, one of the only commentaries he ever did. And which is definitely a must for the DVD if you want to hear him on a commentary too. Now the next one is, they made remakes of this too. And they've made 2 sequels too. A remake and a sequel. And I think they're doing a third one, I think. But the original is the one to watch. And it's the Wes Craven's Hills Have Eyes. And this has always been great. Michael Berryman is amazing. And, you know, I've always been a fan of Michael Berryman. I've met him in a number of conventions. He's always a really nice person. He always signs to Love Life, which I think is great. Basically, though, it's about a group of these kids, you know, family going out. And they're driving through the desert. And they don't want to go on the highway. So they want to go the scenic route. So they get directions to go out this scenic route. Everyone's telling them not to go that way, but they have this thing, they've got to do it. They end up breaking down out there. Not exactly breaking down, they put something in the middle of the road, and they crash, and then there's people living in the hills killing them off.